Okay, well, thank you so much, Yasmin, and thanks to the Maryland Apex Accelerator. Apex Accelerators are fantastic resources for companies that are just starting out. So please, excuse me, leverage them as best you can. I'll try to keep my voice here. And thanks everybody for taking time out of your morning. If you're in the Maryland area, it is cold out there. So we've got about an hour together today, maybe an hour, and a little bit more than that. And I actually, when I put this presentation together, I did something a little bit different where it's kind of more of a rapid fire where I just kind of pulled out the highlights. So I would encourage you guys to, if you have the opportunity to fill out a survey, tell me if you like it, you didn't like this format, if it worked for you or not. And then hopefully you'll see kind of what I mean by that. So let's go ahead and just get started. A little bit about me so you know kind of my background and, am I a credible resource or not? I've been in this industry for 20 plus years. I've got the wrinkles and the gray hair to prove it. And I did meet Yasmin a couple years ago, so she can attest to that. A little bit about what we do is we are based in downtown DC and do provide some training in the form more of complimentary webinars and working with Apex accelerators. But most of our work, our paid work, how we stay alive and pay the bills is through consulting. And you can see some of the services that are listed there, including a heavy focus on GSA and VA schedules, as well as FedLink and some of the other contract vehicles out there. If that sounds like a foreign language, just bear with me and let's go ahead and get um, started. I did want to mention on Monday of next week, we do host our quarterly networking event. It's over at the Kennedy Center in downtown DC. We still have some tickets remaining. There should be about 300 to 400 federal government contractors. And then as far as federal government departments and agencies, you can see the list of who has confirmed their participation here. So heavy on the DoD side. And we do, like I said, still have tickets available. Again, 700 plus complimentary videos on our YouTube channel. It doesn't cost you anything to follow or download any of the videos. Okay, so here's our agenda. I'm not going to read it off to you, but it's pretty basic and you'll see what I mean where I've got kind of a different format of kind of running through this. So we'll start with just basically the basics, what is a GSA schedule? And I usually refer to it as a vendor shortlist. There's, thousands of companies who are on the GSA schedule. And basically these companies are selling anything from, any type of product you can think of, professional services, and then you also have some software companies. And the way that they get onto the schedule is that they're basically responding to a solicitation. You'll see that on the next slide. And GSA vets them. They make sure that they've got the past performance, as well as pricing has been negotiated up front. And the benefit to that is so that once they're on this list, government customers that want to buy their products, services, or software know that they've been vetted, they've been checked out, and the prices have been negotiated. So up to certain dollar thresholds, they won't have to go out and solicit 3 bids to say that they've done their due diligence. They can just buy directly from the GSA, knowing that the pricing has already been negotiated down to the lowest common denominator. Once you're on the schedule, you will actually have an opportunity to receive through a GSA e-buy portal, opportunity, basically RFPs that are only for the GSA schedule holders. So you should not be getting onto the schedule just because you think you're suddenly going to have access to these RFPs, because the other companies that are on the schedule are also going to have that access. So it's basically, if you think of opportunities that you see on sam.gov, this is similar. It's just a smaller subset, but the competition is going to be a little more intense because all of the companies, you're really up against the big boys. It's almost like JV and varsity, if you want an analogy. It is absolutely not required. You do not need a GSA schedule if somebody calls you and is trying to sell it to you. I encourage you to hang up on them and ensure that if you do ever decide to get a schedule, that they are probably not focused on your best interest. There are many, 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 many ways that the government can purchase from you, and GSA is just one of the options. So, and I'll talk about how you can decide if GSA is actually the right tool or option for you. It's really like it's a ticket to the dance. You still need a dance partner. Different people have different ways of describing it. So just know that. Um, as you if should you be fortunate enough to get onto the schedule, it's initially a 5-year contract, and then you have option periods after that. The options are only exercised if your company is compliant and meets all of the terms and conditions, because if, in fact, it is a contract. So what do those terms and conditions look like? This is just one of the many. You do have a sales quota where you need to bring in, at least in that first period, $100,000 through your schedule. And then for the subsequent 5-year periods, $125,000. Now, if you're getting onto the schedule just to bring in those minimum amounts, I would encourage you that this is probably not the right tool for you. Um, there are other terms and conditions, but if we're talking about the sales quota, let's say you've got a $5 million contract with the Air Force, but it's not through your schedule. GSA does not care. They would still potentially send you a letter that says, "Hey, you're not meeting the sales requirement. We're going to remove you from the schedule." So just know that you do need to bring in revenue through your schedule, and you should be really aiming much higher than what this quota is. More than half of the companies on the schedule actually have zero sales through their schedule. Again, they may have millions of dollars with other departments or agencies, but GSA won't care. They will eventually boot you off the schedule if you're not meeting the minimum. And the reason being, this might be too much information, but GSA is a non-appropriated agency, meaning that they receive less than 1% of taxpayer funding. They're self-funded through the schedule holders and then some other mechanisms through GSA's public building service. But you pay GSA, the schedule holders pay GSA 0.75%, and that's on a later slide. Um, of their GSA schedule sales, and that's kind of what keeps the engine humming there at GSA. So just know that most of the companies are not successful through the schedule. Doesn't mean that it's not the right tool for you. Just means that either somebody sold them something that they didn't need, or they have the build it and they will come strategy, which is really not a strategy. So just keep that in mind. So how do you get onto the schedule? It's a RFP, just like any other opportunity. So you would find that on sam.gov, and there is no due date. So as GSA makes changes to solicitations, meaning the requirements that you need to complete to get on, they have something what's called a refresh number. So there have been to the latest GSA schedule, there have been 22 updates. There is one coming out this month, which will be refresh number 23. The one after that will be refresh 24. So for companies that are getting onto the schedule, I'll just say this. If you decide today, after today's webinar, yes, this is the right tool for me, and you download the solicitation and you and your team begin to work on it, and then the new year comes, and then suddenly it's February or March, and you've gotten busy with other things and you haven't wrapped up your proposal, then, and GSA, let's say, has another refresh or an update, they're potentially going to be on refresh 24. What that could possibly mean is there could be changes to templates. There could be changes to requirements. Instead of needing one past performance, you might need two, you might need three, you might need an oral presentation, you might need your customer's fingerprints and the mother's maiden name. I'm being obviously very extreme here, but my point is that you need to be cognizant of the changes that GSA makes to the solicitation. They may have deleted or added a special item number uh, that you're pursuing. So again, just be cognizant of those refresh numbers. And for companies that are already on the schedule, as GSA makes changes to the terms and conditions and requirements, you'll receive a notification which is called a mass mod, um, meaning it's a GSA initiated modification, you simply accept that and it gets built into your terms and conditions. So I did mention SIN number on that last slide. So let me explain what SIN numbers are. SINs are special item numbers, and there are 324 as of the last refresh. Um, 324 special item numbers. And basically what they do is further identify what your product or your service or your software is. And they're categorized into large and small categories, but I wouldn't be so concerned with that if you're just starting out. Just focus on what SINs are and where your product or your services fall. So there's a SIN for IT professional services. There's also a SIN for engineering services and project management and financial services. So I would encourage you to download the list and comb through it. Here's a little bit of a screenshot, and you can see that the SIN numbers, in some instances, closely correspond to what your NAICS codes are, but they are different. Again, NAICS codes are different from the SIN numbers. Sometimes they're an exact match, but for purposes of our discussion today, uh, what you should be pursuing as it relates to the GSA schedule are SIN numbers. So for the middle one here, the 541.5S, that's for IT professional services. It corresponds to the NAICS code, the 541.519. What that means is that in your SAM.gov registration, you should have that NAICS code. If you are pursuing the 54151S, you should have 541.519 as your primary NAICS code, meaning that's where the propensity of the work that you do falls. So again, there are 324 of these, and you should be able to find at least one spot where your products, your services, or your software are categorized. Once you have identified your SIN numbers, every SIN is going to have its own nuances and different requirements, but generally speaking, they're going to be similar. So most of the product SINs are going to require that, let's say if you're a reseller or dealer or distributor, that you have a letter of supply from the manufacturer. And some other paperwork that goes along with that for Trade Agreement Acts and Ability One. If you're selling professional services, and they're also going to have their own price proposal templates. For services, more or less the same requirements. There are some SINs for professional services that are going to require additional past performance requirements. And the price proposal templates are different for products versus services. As you can imagine, um, our products are going to have SKU numbers and manufacturer information, where services are not going to, that is not going to be applicable. So make sure as you download the solicitation that you have the appropriate uh, price proposal template. Okay, let's move on. Let me just pause here and see if any questions have come in, Yasmin.
No, not as yet. Just to remind everybody that's joined us that you can type out your questions for Jennifer in the chat box.
Great, thank you. Gave me a chance to have a sip of coffee here. Okay, so as I mentioned, the product SINs are going to have similar requirements to each other, but again, as you download the solicitation, you'll see that there are additional supplemental information for various SINs. You need to read through that and find out what additional hoops you need to jump through. So let's pause there, and now we'll move on to onto pricing, which is really the biggest focus of the schedule. If you're a newer company and you don't have any sort of methodology to your pricing, you don't understand direct and indirect rates and how to build up your rates so that they're profitable, and you don't have a lot of past performance, GSA is probably not the right tool for you. Because what they are going to do is negotiate you down to a very, very low price that might not be a good idea for your company, might not be palatable. It might potentially put you out of business if you're not being profitable. So the main focus of the schedule as a whole is for GSA to negotiate your absolute lowest prices. And so how do they determine So you'll basically disclose a lot of information. You'll disclose your commercial prices as well as who your most favored customer is. And your most favored customer is not the customer that has the coolest logo or they always invite you to their Christmas party. The most favorite customer is your client that gets the best discounts from you. Now, if you're selling products, and products usually fall into these categories where there's volume discounts, or quantity discounts. If somebody orders, I don't know, $500,000 or more of the product, then we give a, I don't know, 0.25% discount. Or, um, if somebody's ordering 1 through 10 pallets of whatever it is you're selling, the price is X. If it's, 11 through 100, then the price is, something else. GSA still wants those sort of volume or quantity discounts. But what we're talking about here are parts of your standard policies and practices, meaning do your nonprofits that you sell to always get a 10% discount? The state and local education markets, do they always get a 15% discount? So anything that's built into your standard discounts is what GSA puts on the table for negotiation. So again, as I mentioned, if you're giving a 10% discount to nonprofits, that is considered a standard part of your practice. The sales reps know it. Your billing department knows it. They know that the invoice should include that 10% discount. Now, if you're giving just a random one-time spot discount simply to win the business or as part of a kind of one-off deal. Maybe you've got an opportunity to get a footprint in a Department of Defense, and that's where you think your solution is going to have the most play, where you're going to be most successful. Then these kind of one-off discounts don't count. Those would be non-standard. And as long as they don't make up a large portion of your business, then they don't need to come into play with the negotiations. You still need to disclose it to GSA, but you do not need to. It doesn't come into the negotiations. The only part of the negotiations is your standard discount. So here's a visual example. And this class is always easier in person if I had a whiteboard or a chalkboard. I guess chalkboards probably are irrelevant these days. It's more whiteboards. But let's say the commercial price is $200 for your widget, or $200 for a user license, or $200 per hour for whatever job title it is you're providing. So your standard discount, again, this is part of your policies and practices. It's on your price list. It's on your website. Your entire team knows about this, is that you give a 10% discount to nonprofits. That makes that price $180 for nonprofits. So you disclose that to GSA. Hey, we always give a 10% discount to nonprofits, but GSA, we're going to offer you something better. So you offer GSA a little bit more. You give them a 12% discount. So you propose to GSA that your price then is $176. And that's typically how that works. There's a whole spreadsheet that this information goes through and gets submitted to GSA. What happens then on the GSA receiving side is that GSA conducts 2 litmus tests. One, they're going to kind of go back to this and say, okay, are we getting a better discount from the standard discounts that this company has in place? And in this scenario, yes, GSA is getting a better discount. So you're proposing again this 176. What the next litmus test that GSA does, if the 176 is for products or software, they will go on to gsaadvantage.gov, and you can, I would encourage you to do this before you even decide to get onto the schedule, to make sure that your prices are going to be profitable, is to also go on to gsaadvantage.gov and look for those same widgets that you're selling and see who else is selling them. Um, are those companies selling at a rate that's higher or lower than what you're proposing? And same thing, if you're selling professional services and you've got a labor category that you think you can still be profitable at the 176 rate, what does the buy.gsa.gov site look like? And are the rates there competitive? Knowing that your GSA rates are a price ceiling or a not to exceed rate. So GSA will conduct this research as part of the negotiations. So what, again, I encourage you to do before you even decide to get onto the schedule, you want to make sure that you're not walking into this blind, that you're walking into getting onto the schedule knowing that you will be a profitable business. And so these are both free websites that anybody can access. And I've got some screenshots here of the buy.gsa.gov. And let's go ahead and just take a look at that. So again, do your homework before you decide to get onto the schedule. So I just did a very generic term for project manager, and you want to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. So if your project manager requires a minimum bachelor's degree and a minimum of 5 years of experience, then that's the parameters that you should type in. You should also, if your uh, job title has a security clearance, or you also want to select the special item number. So, just see, sorry, I'm getting messages that people are in the waiting room. Um, okay, so this is what the project manager average comes out to be, the $140. So if your rate for that same project manager is $200, then GSA is more or less going to negotiate you down to the $140 rate. So if you can't live with that, then the GSA schedule may not be, the timing might not be right for you. So let's move on to the next slide, which basically just gives you more of a screenshot of the various companies that hold this average price, and will help you make that determination on if this is in your best interest or not. So, as I mentioned, your GSA rates are a price ceiling or not to exceed, meaning that once you're on the schedule at your 176 or $140 per hour, per widget, per user license, you're actually encouraged to give discounts through your schedule. So, um, you need to know that you're going to have some wiggle room there to be competitive once you're on the schedule. So it really does come down to very, very, very thin margins. And I'll stop there and see if there's any questions that have come in.
Yes, we do have one. Can you provide any information of the products and services we provide being the Trade Agreements Act?
Um, So it's all in the solicitation, but for companies that are selling products, not services, so products need to have been made in companies that are TAA compliant. Trade Agreement Act, there's a list of countries, and sometimes it changes um, with new administrations or even throughout administration. So first, you need to have a list of those company or those countries. So North Korea, China, Argentina, Syria, your usual suspects there. Uh, Malaysia, Thailand, and some other countries are on that list. So if your product is made in any of those countries, you cannot propose them to through the GSA schedule. Also, product companies need to be cognizant of Ability One. Ability One is part of Department of Justice Unicore, which is part of the prison systems. And those Unicorn actually makes products. So you need to ensure that your products are also not being made by Ability One. If they are, you cannot propose them to GSA. Uh, Also, if you have products that are on the schedule, let's say post-award, you've got a heartbeat, you've got your products on the schedule, you need to make sure that on a regular basis, preferably on a monthly basis, that you're monitoring TAA as well as Ability One, because Ability One may add a new product that, um, once you're on the schedule, that conflicts with the product that you're selling or is the same one. Or you could have a product that's on the schedule, but then suddenly, let's say it's made in, I don't know, I'm going to use an extreme example, Canada, and then suddenly Canada becomes a foe and is not on the TAA list anymore. You would then have to remove that product. So again, very extreme example, but you need to have a monitoring mechanism in place to ensure that your products are compliant. Hopefully that answers the question. If not, whoever asked it, you can please type in again. I'm happy to try to reiterate the explanation.
Thanks. That's all the questions for now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so regardless of product, services, or software, your GSA rates are a price ceiling, again, are not to exceed. So you need to have enough wiggle room, enough profit margin in there to be able to be on the schedule at these lower rates, but then also bid for work at a rate that's lower than your GSA rate. And I think I have an example of what that looks like. Also post award, you cannot give anyone a rate lower than your GSA rate outside of your schedule. So let's see here. Here we go. So let's just go left to right here. Your GSA awarded price for your widget for your hourly rate, whatever it is $150 per hour, per user license, per pallet. And let's say the Air Force comes to you and says, "Hey, we want to purchase your solution." So you can offer them, you can offer them 150 if you want. You don't have to go lower, but to be competitive, most companies will, let's say, offer a discounted rate. So let's say you offer $140, that's fine because it's a GSA schedule purchase. Now, if another department or even GSA sometimes will make purchases that are not through the schedule. So even if it's a federal customer uh, and they're not using the schedule, you cannot, again, you cannot go lower than your rate. It doesn't matter if it's the White House, OMB, OPM, uh, Supreme Court, whoever it is, you cannot go lower than your GSA rate. Through your schedule, yes. Outside of your schedule, no. Even with commercial customers, government customers, state and local education, whomever it is. If you do, you'll then need to notify GSA, and typically what they'll do, depending upon how big of a purchase or not it is, you'll then be encouraged to make a modification and lower your GSA rates. Uh, and I'll pause there in case anybody has questions. Sometimes that gets confusing, but maybe we're good. I don't know.
There's a question says, can you repeat the minimum sales quota and clarify the cost to be on the GSA?
Sure, the sales quota was a couple slides back, so it's $100,000 for the first 5 years. That is not per your SIN, it's per the schedule. And the 3 5-year periods after that each have a sales quota of $125,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So GSA also, as I mentioned, the way that because they're non-appropriated, the way they stay, we'll say, in business is through what's called the industrial funding fee, the IFF. It's less than 1%, as you can see, 0.75%. And this gets added onto to your prices. The customer will pay it to you. It's kind of, I'll call it a GSA scheduled tax. You will pull that out on a quarterly basis and pay that to GSA. If you do not have any GSA schedule sales, there's nothing for you to pay to GSA. However, you will still need to go on into the GSA platform to type in the sales that you had. You basically just type in 0, but you still need to do it for that particular quarter. If you do have GSA schedule sales, then you will pay that industrial funding fee. So just know that the customer is the one that is really paying it. It's kind of a wash, if you will, that you're adding it onto your prices, you extract it and pay it to GSA. Okay, some best practices here as we kind of wind down on the presentation. So I'm a big proponent of just selling to the federal government simply because it's such a unique market, because there is so much data that is out there that companies can leverage in order to make decisions. If you were selling into the restaurant industry, into, I don't know, healthcare, into um, name an industry, you're not going to have access to databases like SAM.gov to USA Spending to FPDS and others to find out who are the competitors, what type of sales do the competitors have, how much has my customer purchased over the last however many fiscal years. There's so much data that can be used and leveraged to help you make smarter or just smart decisions about where to spend your time, where to focus your efforts, what opportunities not to bid on because um, you know that the incumbent has a good relationship based on data that's out there. So what I'm really trying to say is use data to make decisions because you're so fortunate to have data that's available to you. So before you decide to get onto the schedule, uh, it's kind of to me like jumping into a swimming pool. And the swimming pool, let's just call the swimming pool GSA. Let's imagine it's painted at the bottom of the swimming pool. Would you jump into the swimming pool if there was no water in there? No. So what I'm saying is that swimming pool, you need to know how deep is the water? How much revenue is there out there for your company to potentially win through the schedule? And that data exists. There's ways that you can extract this data. And if you're not savvy on how to do that, you can either work with your Apex Accelerator to find out that information or contact us, or maybe you're subscribed to one of the paid monthly data aggregators that exist that have a nice platform that can help you pull this data. So a lot of companies decide that they want to get onto GSA, and then we will ask them, okay, great, we're happy to help you complete the proposal, but how much revenue for your particular product, service, or software is going through GSA? You know, how big is the market? And they don't know. So again, that's like jumping into a pool with not knowing if there's, 10 feet of water or 10 inches of water. So get that information first and really dig into the data, slice it and dice it. You know, what large businesses are winning the contracts in my industry? What small businesses? What's going to 8A, women owned, hub zone, veteran owned, and all the rest? What does that competitive landscape look like? So you know kind of what you're getting into before you decide to climb Mount Everest. You know, do you have the right tools? Is it going to be competitive? Is this the right time for you to embark on this journey, for lack of better word? So I would encourage you to answer the questions that I've got listed here. How big is the market for your product or service? Again, I would start with the entire federal government and then start to slice it down. Um, who's winning these contracts? Is it primarily going to large businesses? If so, then maybe you put the brakes on GSA and work on subcontracting with primes. What's going to set asides? If let's say 60% is going to set asides and you've got one of the set aside boxes checked, um, then maybe pursue that angle. What's going through full and open competition, meaning what's going on SAM.gov. And if the large majority is going there, then maybe again, you put the brakes on GSA and you focus your time and effort on perhaps hiring a part-time or full-time, sales, marketing, business development person, as well as a proposal writer. Because if it's going full and open competition, that's, out there for the world to see. Um, and then also get the data to how much is going through the GSA schedule, and what's the delta there? What's going full and open competition versus what's going GSA? And if only 1% is going through GSA for your particular product or service, again, that might not be the right avenue for you. Or you could take the other approach and say, well, only 1% is going through GSA. I'm going to use that as a tool to block out or kind of box out some competitors. It really just that all of these questions are going to be unique to your business. So it's not a blanket yes, no for all IT companies or even all software companies that are women owned and veteran owned and in a hub zone. Like you really need to take the time, invest the time upfront in this market analysis, get your roadmap, and it really will serve you well. And there are other contract vehicles. Um, I'm just talking here about the second to the last question that I've got. What's going through other contract vehicles? DHS, Eagle, NASA SOUP, Navy Seaport E, Army ITES, the list go on and on and on. So make sure you know that if you are going down the GSA path, that there's something there for you. Okay, and so here's just a visual that makes kind of what I was talking about a little bit more coherent, hopefully. So, full and open competition, this is what's going through sam.gov, and this is just kind of, very rough estimate numbers based on the entire federal government, but you should conduct this analysis or hire somebody, work with us, work with your Apex Accelerator, use your monthly subscription with your data aggregator to pull this data before you make decisions. So instead of percentages, I would encourage you to have dollar amounts and really slice the data so that it will help guide your where you spend your time and effort. The department agency vehicles are the ones that I just kind of rattled off, and there's more than those. GSA schedule is typically only used about 10 to 12% of the time in federal purchases. It still represents billions of dollars as a whole, but again, do the research to find out what's going through your special item number, and who's winning the contracts there. You really need to extract this information. And then there's just some other ways that the government purchases that I listed here, just to give you a better idea about some of the market analysis that you should conduct as a typical best practice. Yeah, is there return on your investment? The only cost of getting onto the schedule is going to be your time and putting the proposal together, or hiring a firm like us to help you complete the process. And we have different price points based on, the type of level of effort that you need. But the real point is, and I'm not here to sell any of my services, but use the data to make decisions, whether it's getting 8A certified, getting onto the GSA schedule, even entering the federal market as a whole. Um, and this will, again, serve you well. And I would encourage you to spend more time than not on this market research and analysis. And the more narrow your focus is, the better you'll be served, because it will allow you to quickly say no to opportunities that you know you can't win. And I'm sure the Maryland Apex Accelerator has a webinar on, making bid or no bid decisions. And you should have some sort of methodology or formula within your company, some sort of matrix a decision matrix that you go through on deciding yes or no, whether it's on specific opportunities as well as even contract vehicles, and kind of how you spend your time. And the more methodical you can be about your approach and using data versus just an instinct, like, oh, everybody's got a GSA schedule. I see the logo everywhere. Yeah, we should get on that. Without really knowing, as you jump into the GSA swimming pool, are you going to be competing with, major companies that have 90% of the work there? So I don't mean to pontificate here, but again, let the data drive your decisions. And if nothing else that you take away from today, let that be something. And you also want to conduct, a lot of companies will get onto the schedule and then say, oh, we need help with sales and marketing, when it's kind of like the chicken and egg, I guess, in some aspects. Or some respects, because you really want to get out there and start talking to customers after you've done the research. Say, hey, what's your preferred method of procurement? And if they say, oh, we'd love to buy your services or your product or your software through the schedule, that should be an indicator that, yes, okay, we're starting to build up our sales pipeline of people within the government, our prospects, our potential customers that want to purchase through the schedule. Don't wait until you're on the schedule and the clock is ticking on that sales quota to start your sales and marketing. You're not going to be successful. Also, the solicitation, it doesn't cost you anything except your time to download that, and make sure that you meet both the pre-award requirements as well as post-award. Do you have a compliance system in place that, or at least someone that understands how to be compliant with the GSA schedule? Do you have a sales rep that's out there in the commercial world who's just kind of, giving discounts left and right, that's going to impact your GSA schedule rates and get you in trouble and potentially kicked off the schedule because you didn't clearly communicate to them that they're not allowed to give discounts um, outside of the GSA schedule rates. And just because you meet the requirements to get onto the schedule, it doesn't mean it's a good idea for you to be on the schedule. Again, use that data to you could be on the schedule and you're not profitable and you don't understand the how to increase your prices or how to make price modifications or um, you're not just read the fine print before you jump into the onto the GSA schedule. As far as putting together a proposal to get onto the schedule, I would encourage, just like any proposal out there, that you put together a compliance matrix to make sure that everything that you're submitting is compliant and correct. And then because there are so many moving parts and um, you want to make sure that your information is relevant and that it hasn't expired, that you're submitting project experiences and copies of contracts that are still within the GSA time frame or time limit. Again, that's where the compliance matrix comes into play, as well as potentially having a fresh set of eyes to review everything that you're submitting to make sure that it is correct, that you've checked all the boxes, that your SAM registration reflects what you are proposing to GSA, that you're using the right price proposal template. If in fact it has changed, and as I mentioned, GSA is putting out Refresh 23 this month, and there will be a change to the price proposal template. So if you get, like, as I was mentioning earlier, if you start the proposal today, your company gets sidetracked, and then by the time you go to submit, and let's say it's June of 2025, if you're submitting using old documentation, old templates, um, you're probably going to either get rejected or you'll have a bumpy ride getting onto the schedule. And that is all that I had. I tried to keep this short and sweet just for the sake of trying to keep it more conversational and answering questions. So I know we probably have a good 15 minutes left, and I'll see if anything has come in, or I'm happy to go back to any slides. Again, this was really just a high level, what is GSA? Is it the right tool for you? And hopefully some of what I said gave folks on the call some things to think about before they decide to get on. So I'll pause there, Yasmin.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was great, as usual. So yeah, now's your opportunity to ask Jennifer your questions, or if you want her to go over any particular slides. So I think there's a couple here. Can you clarify, is there only one GSA schedule? And do all SAM.gov contracts go through GSA?
Okay, so there is only one GSA schedule. That is correct. And what differentiates companies that are on the schedule, let me see if I can go back to it. Should be able to find it pretty quickly, is your special item number. So there are 324 special item numbers. And so everybody is on the companies that are on the 18 to 20,000 companies that are on the GSA schedule are segmented by their special item numbers that further identify what your product, service, or software is. Um, and again, the special item numbers somewhat correspond, not exactly to the NAICS codes. They are different. So if you're on the GSA schedule, then you have either one SIN or several SINs that you are providing through the schedule. Hopefully that answers the question. If not, please type in more so that I can clarify further.
Okay, thanks. A couple more have come through. What are the financial requirements to get on a schedule? And do you have any recommendations on data aggregates to use for market research?
Sure. And you know what? I realized I didn't answer the second half of the other question about, are all opportunities on SAM.gov GSA schedule contracts? No, they are not. So GSA has their own um, portal by which they submit, let's say, RFPs or RFQs. It's called GSA eBuy. And the schedule holders that have these particular special item numbers, let's say somebody at HHS needs health information services. And so they say, we're going to purchase through GSA. And so they will put out potentially an RFP that only the companies on this 54151 HEAL are able to view. And you will not see those on sam.gov, but you can still get data that is related to the 54151 HEAL through another government website. It's d2d.gov. D as in data, the number 2, and then the letter D for data again. And you can navigate there to get kind of the SIN totals to help make decisions on how big is the market for this particular SIN. Who are the companies that are on that schedule? Who has 0 sales through that schedule? Or through that SIN, I'm sorry. So that was the second half of that first question. This next question, I had a question about financial requirements. So your company there's always going to be exceptions. And GSA does have programs where if your company has not been in business for the required 2 full years, then you can kind of bypass that. I wouldn't encourage it because, again, most of the companies on the schedule are unsuccessful. More than half have 60% have 0 sales through their schedule. So again, do your homework, please, 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 to find out, is this even the right tool? Does your customer prefer to purchase this way? And what's the competition going to look like? So the financial requirements, you're going to need 2 full years of balance sheet and income statement. You should be showing profitability. If not, this can really be a deal breaker. If you are not profitable, then you'll need an explanation. And the COVID contracting era explanation, or I'm not going to say excuse, but that's a poor choice of words, but that you can't really use that as leverage anymore to say this is why our financials are not healthy. But sometimes what will happen is if your financials are not as healthy as GSA feels that they should be, when you submit to GSA, they will typically refer you over to the finance team, which will conduct further financial analysis. And you'll have to fill out what's called the SF 527. You can Google that. It's the standard form 527. It's just bank reference and additional financial scrutiny that you'll go through. So again, I encourage everybody to, the companies that are most successful understand government contracting, have been in business for a while. They talk the talk, they walk the walk, and are not trying to understand what a special item number is or how to navigate the system. If that's kind of where you are, then you're kind of jumping into the NBA when you should still be, I don't know, in Little League or on the junior varsity team. And I don't mean that as a as a rude comment. It just as a reality trying to help you. Like, don't jump in and swim with the sharks until you you know really how to swim and navigate the waters a little more.
Okay. I'm trying to see what was the next question. You answered the one about, did you answer the one about market research?
Oh, market research. I'm sorry. Yep, sorry. So there's a variety of companies. Gosh, GovSpend, GovTribe, GovWatch. I'm sure that the Bloomberg Gov, Deltec, all of these are at various price points. But the data aggregators, I would kind of shop around. I should probably put together a list. And Yasmin, maybe you guys have a list somewhere too that's more comprehensive than what I'm able to rattle off here this morning. But yeah, I would look into those. But I'd also say at least spend, I don't know, a month or two just getting familiar with the systems yourself, going on to sam.gov, going on to usaspending.gov, going on to buy.gsa.gov, and really learning where the data comes from and kind of how to. I'm not saying that you need to be an expert, but I'm sure the Apex Accelerator probably has classes on how to conduct market research without subscribing to these databases, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to at least familiarize yourself with some of these government websites and and just kind of looking at the data from the raw perspective before the data aggregators kind of get a hold of it and put it into like a pretty format for you. I'm not encouraging you to waste time, but um, some of the research that you can conduct yourself without using the aggregators. They do make it nice, but it still would be, I think, just a good idea to learn how to what's out there.
Yes, and I'd just like to add on to that. I've posted a link to our website, to our resources page, and there's a lot of very useful links and free downloads. So spend some time browsing our website, and that will really help you build upon your market research. So thanks for that. Let's see, we have got any more questions. What if you have past performance on a contract and are having issues tracking down a sanitized SOW?
Uh, so I'm not sure if this question is related to you're trying to submit this information as part of your past performance to GSA. Um, so if that's the case, so for each of the SIN numbers that you're pursuing, they're going to have various requirements. And let's just take a random one that requires just one project experience or a narrative that shows that you have done this work in the past. This is how I'm answering the question. If I'm off here by the question, please have the individual rephrase or stop me in my tracks here. So you'll need a copy of the contract. You'll need the statement of work, and uh, if it's you and let's say another company that are performing on this statement of work, then you would just highlight the part of that statement of work that that your company conducted. So you can submit the whole one. It needs to be within the last 3 years. You need signatures, dates, and the dollar amount that's relevant to the work that you did. And I just made obviously some assumptions on that, so I'm not sure if that was how the question was intended to come in.
Okay, thanks. Next question is, I was recently informed that SIN 62621 was closed. How can I verify which SINs are open and which are closed?
Sure. 621 does not sound like a SIN number. They're usually at least 5 or 6 characters. So I would just go on to sam.gov, download the GSA solicitation, and look at these SIN numbers. And what you see here on the screen is really just like a snapshot of what is available. I'm also happy if you send me an email. My email address is there at the bottom of the screen. The hello at Jennifer Schaus. I'm happy to send you this Excel spreadsheet that has all of the SIN numbers listed.
Okay, great. And also I'd like to add on to the fact that if you have an Apex Accelerator counselor, they can assist you with a lot of these questions. So please do take advantage of that opportunity. Let's see, is there any, I don't think that I've missed any. Somebody was saying, thank you for pointing out that it's very helpful information. We now realize our company is worlds away from qualifying for the GSA schedule. So thank you for that. And I think
Oh,
it's important to always have realistic expectations of what, you can achieve in government contracting. As you said, you can't jump the
right.
gun.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. And I don't mean to scare anybody by saying, oh, this is, you'll be in over your head. But I mean, the reality is when you pull down the data, when you conduct the market research and you see that within your SIN or within the SIN that you want to pursue, you look at the sales for the last fiscal year and you see zeros next to so many companies' names. I don't want to take on clients and take their money to get them onto this vendor shortlist where they're not going to have any return on the investment. So most of the time, we end up turning clients away. But usually what happens is after they get experience, after 2 or 3 years, then they come back and say, hey, we think that was the right decision. So again, conduct the market research. The data is out there. So please use it. Like that is your biggest tool. It's your biggest friend, and the Apex Accelerator can help you navigate through the various websites, or as we talked about, the data aggregators, make it a little bit easier to use. Use data to make decisions, not just about GSA, but about getting 8A certified, getting, HubZone certified. Is that going to serve you well? Or even just going after opportunities. There's so much data that you can pull down from FPDS and USA spending. How many companies bid on the opportunity that's, last go around, that's coming out for a recompete in February of 2025? If there were only two or three, then it kind of shows you that those two or three companies probably had a really good relationship with the government, uh, and so you probably shouldn't be spending your time and effort there. And maybe there's some sort of capability that those two companies have that you don't. So um, again, just from a broader perspective, from the 50,000-foot level, use data to make wise decisions and spend more of your time conducting that analysis, because you'll be more efficient, more effective, more profitable, which I'm assuming is why most companies are in business. So.
Okay, well, that's all we have time for. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And thank you, everybody, for participating today. We will hopefully have Jennifer back next year to teach some more classes for us. And you should definitely check out her networking events. They have a great reputation. And, it's a good opportunity to practice your networking skills and getting to meet the players. So, yeah, take advantage of that. So thanks again, and we hope to see you at a future Apex Accelerator event. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Yasmin. Thanks, everybody.